Okay. First thing I've got to say is, do not caught up with the homework, get caught up with the homework. Okay? Now, everybody's doing some good steps, but most people are also doing some steps that just have no justification. Okay? There are only two things you can do. Multiply or divide both sides by the same thing, add or subtract the same thing, both sides. Okay? So again, the rules. You know, in your text and whatever else you. Now, the camera just did something, but that's something I should have anticipated. Okay. Okay. Or you can. I say add the same thing, both sides. That means the same number. You might add a negative number, which feels a lot like subtracting. So I could say add or subtract, but add includes subtract. Okay? If you add -2, it's the same as subtracting 2. I think everybody understands that. You'll understand quite a bit, but what I'm saying on these, we're still in elementary algebra here. Over the next week or so, we start to transition into intermediate algebra. We want to get the elementary algebra down so we don't have to worry about it. So you want to pretty much be perfect on everything that we do up well into chapter 5. Okay. So anyhow, first equation. Well, let's do the last one first, because it's the easiest. There's something here that a lot of people are missing. Okay. Our goal is to get all our x's on one side and all our plain numbers on the other side. Okay, well, if you add -5 to both sides, in other words, you add the equation -5 equals 5, no matter what open math or anything else might tell you, you want an equal sign there so you understand that you're adding an equation to an equation. You also can't add that -5 to that -3. And you can't get rid of that -3 by adding 3, because that's 3x, and 3x plus 3 depends on what the value of x is. You can't say that -3x plus 3 is x. Okay? So I've seen that, and I always do see that. So we want to try to make sure we understand that. Okay. Well, -3x plus 5 is just plain old -3. Well, I say, we want to write this out completely. I would prefer to see this step where you have this side and this side all put together in one expression, this side and this side all together in another expression. Because I think I've seen somebody you're less likely to do that. Isn't following the rules, okay? So we got -3x plus 5 and -5 is 0. So that's just -3x. I'll even write plus 0. That's going a little further than you'd want to go, but just to be sure we understand that the 5 and the -5 gives us 0, and there's an x in front of the negative, behind the -3. So that gives us -3x equals 2x minus 12. Okay, now do we have all our x's on one side? No, we don't. We got an x here, we got an x here. We have all our numbers on one side? Yeah, they're all over here on the right side. This means if we want our x's on one side and our numbers on the other side, all our numbers are on the right side, all our x's are going to have to be on the left side. How are we going to do that? For 2x, no matter what x is, and then we have -2 of them, that gives us -5 of them, right? So we get -5x equals that. You know, I'm skipping a step that I'm going to choose not to skip. As I said before, let's write out what this means to add these two equations. We have -3x minus 2x, that's one side. 2x minus 12 minus 2x. There it is. And of course, this gives us -5x equals 2x minus 2x is 0. Okay, so, well, I'm going to have to borrow a little space over here. So we've got -5x equals -12. So then we do -5x over -5 equals -12 over -5. -5 divided by -5 is 1. So we have x equals 12 over 5. And several people got that. So if you got that, you're not doing too bad. You understand how to move x's from one side to the other and numbers and all that stuff, okay? Now, the other two problems can get a little confusing. This really isn't all that confusing if you keep your wits about you and simplify things. This one isn't confusing if you realize that you have to do what I've been telling you to do, is multiply both sides by a common denominator. And I'm not sure I saw anybody do that. And that's one of the things, for some reason, it's hardest to get people to do. And it's going to cause you trouble. Okay, so you want to really make yourself a note to do that. Well, wait until I get to that one. Let's do this one. First one, 2 times the quantity x minus 5 plus 3x equals 3 times 2x plus 4, or minus 4, minus x. Now, I did get some right solutions to this. Actually, yeah, there it is. Okay. So if I multiply 2 by x minus 5, that means 2 times x minus 2 times 5. And then it's plus 3x. And this means 3 times 2x minus 3 times 4 minus x. You want to skip that step because you're in a hurry or you're not. And if you're skipping that step, as I told you not to last time, it'll save you trouble in the long run. You get a better result for less effort. Get in the right habit. Write out your distributive law. Now, some people like to do this. They remind themselves 2 multiplies this and 2 multiplies a -5. That's fine. Okay? But that doesn't mean you can skip multiplying doing this. Don't skip it until you've done 100 of them. If you do this, your numbers and your thoughts don't get as jumbled up as they could. And of course, when you're learning this, things do get jumbled up. Okay, so now we simplify. Now with that, we're not doing anything to both sides. We're not using a rule of equations. We're just using what we know is that the 2x and the 3x add up to 5x. The minus 10 has nothing to do with x. Okay? Minus 10 isn't multiplied by x, so you can't absorb that minus 10 into any of the coefficients of x. Okay? And here we get 6x minus x, which is 5x minus 12. Okay. Well, probably in the habit of moving our numbers onto one side. Now, there's something we could see right here at this point that tells us that we're not getting the solution. Okay? But that's okay. If you see that, it's okay, but we're going to add 10 to both sides. We get 5x minus 10 plus 10 equals 5x minus 12 plus 10. And we simplify that. We get 5x plus 0 equals 5x minus 2. And again, there's something we can see, but let's just go ahead and continue on. Subtract 5. Equals 5x minus 2 minus 5x. Now, it down again, but what's 5x minus 5x? That's 0. What's 5x minus 2 minus 5x? That's 2, negative 2. Okay. This is untrue. For any value of x, because this doesn't involve x. 0 is not equal to negative 2. So there's no solution. And open math tells you when a problem this to really reinforce the rules. And I'm not sure camera is quite picking up. Bottom of the screen. Actually, the camera understands how to zoom. Hit the button 6 times before it responds. I thought I had a good replacement for this camera, but didn't have good enough resolution. So had everything else I wanted. So I ordered a more expensive camera, same kind, better resolution, HDMI input. So that's supposed to come today. Hopefully I'll be able to get something that I can replace this thing with. And that camera's about half the price of this one. The one that we're using. Okay. Now, all that's pretty straightforward. If you look at it, you can see you're going to have to multiply through by 2, multiply through by 3, and you can see you're going to end up with x's on both sides. Okay, so then you just got to do what we did with this one. Add whatever number gets all the numbers on this side, and add whatever multiple of x gets all the numbers onto this side. Okay? And we're following rules. A lot of times you're taught we want to move this over here and we want to move that over there. Well, you can look at it that way just before you do it. Say, oh, now what rule am I using? And write out the rule. That way you won't be as likely to lose track of it. Okay. You have a common denominator. So multiply both sides by 6, which gives you 6 multiplied by 2x over 3 plus 5, multiplied by everything. People are in the habit, not in the habit, and I admit that when I was learning algebra, I did it a few times. You know, you multiply by the first, and then you forget to multiply by the second. Okay? So no big shame in that, but you got to get over it. Well, just going literally, we write out the distributive law. 6 times 2x over 3 times 6 by 5, because you don't have for fractions, and multiply the 6 by 2x to get 12x, and multiply the 1 by 3 to get 3. Now, open math might tell you, you can cross out that 3 and cross out the 6 and write a 2 there. It's cancellation. Yeah, that's valid. If you're sure you understand why and sure you're never going to screw it up, go ahead. I don't want to do my division until I get here. And then 6 times 7 is 42 over 2. The whole thing of crossing out the 3 and crossing out the 6, write a 2, is so you can do it faster. You don't have to do it faster. You just have to know how to do it. Because when it comes right down to it, if you've got to do it fast, you're probably going to use some kind of software. Okay? But you do have to know how to do it so you know what your software is doing. Okay, so we still got denominators, but now they divide out. Because we multiplied by 6, this number is going to have a factor of 3, and we're going to get 4x plus 30 equals 21. And now it's really easy to solve. Because multiplying by 6 carefully so we don't mess up any steps brings this equation with fractions into a very simple equation without any. Okay? Okay, so we write the equation, minus 30 equals minus 30. And we get 4x plus 30 minus 30 equals 21 minus 30. Now I can finish that up in a small space, because all we're left with on this side is 4x, and all we're left with on this side is 21. 30 minus 30 is 0. I'm not going to write out the 0 this time, but I recommend that you do for a week or two. And you do the arithmetic, and 21 minus 30 is negative 9. So now we divide both sides by 4. But this is a solution to the equation. Make sense? There are a lot of steps, and you don't want to be doing steps that aren't valid. Now, everybody's doing steps. And everybody's, at least half the steps everybody's doing are good steps. It's the other half, in some cases, that I worry about. And you avoid doing that by writing everything out in detail. And I strongly recommend that you do that, that you work through another assignment, or if you haven't worked it through, because some of you haven't, you got to go to the half credit page and do it. Okay. And write out everything, every step, and send me a copy. Scan it as a PDF and send it to me so I can see what you're doing. Because then I can pretty quickly alert you to the things you're not seeing. Okay. Also, when I was learning this, we might do 100 problems in one night. They were repetitive, they were redundant, but they got us in the habit of doing the right thing. Now, I think most of us would have done well if we'd have had 20 problems where we had to write out what we were doing every time. Okay, write out every step, document it. The way we learned to do in our geometry class. So I'm not sure it's necessary to do 100 of these problems to learn it, if you write it out carefully and really lock it into your brain. If you do need 100 problems, I can write a program that'll give you 100 problems and take me about 15 minutes. Okay. Or you can find problems online. You can ask an AI, give me a bunch of linear equations to solve. When I asked ChatGPT to do that 2 years ago, it gave me the problems, but it didn't give me any of the right solutions and couldn't explain the solutions. I think that's changed. Buddy, tell me what shape I have here. Don't say it till I pause. Okay, now the best I got out of the class was it starts with P, but that was pretty good. Since he, I don't know how long it's been since middle school. Person that answered that, you're about 48, aren't you? Yeah. Uh, been a while. Okay. Now I've marked this angle and this angle as being equal. I've marked this angle and this angle as being equal, which means that this side is parallel to this side and this side is parallel to this side. Okay. So I'll say opposite angles are equal. So it's a parallelogram. Meaning that opposite sides are equal. Okay. Now parallelogram, here's a special parallelogram. Can you tell me what you would call that one? So rectangle. Uh, all angles are 90 degrees. So we've got a rectangle. So how high is that rectangle? Okay, well, we got the answer that the H stands for what I call the height and the W for the width. Okay, and what I'm calling the height here is the altitude. What I'm calling the width is the base. Now, if you turn it around 90 degrees, so it's higher than it is wide, you could call this dimension the base and this dimension the altitude. The altitude doesn't have to go up and down. An altitude is between two parallel sides. Okay. And the base right here. It's not one of the two parallel sides between which you measure the altitude. I'm writing in small letters here for the altitude. That's a little ambiguous. There are two parallel sides you use for the altitude. And the word not is wrong. It's one of the two parallel sides you use for the altitude. Come back to that when we figure out the area of a parallelogram. So here's a rectangle. Can you tell me what you think the area of that rectangle is? Can you show me with your fingers? What do you think area of that rectangle would be? The way it's depicted. Okay, got one answer. Believe it's right. What do you mean by area? It means how many square units. So this is covered. So the area is 6 of those square units. Each of those squares is identical. 6, I say equal squares. That's okay. Identical might have been a better word, but equal will work. Okay. If they're squares and they're equal, that means everything's equal. The sides are equal, the areas are equal. And you can, you used to be able to look down at this floor and see the square tiles. If you look close enough, you can still see them, but they've upgraded this whole building. I don't know if I like this floor better than the other one, but I like looking at it better. 5 years, I'm still around. If the tiles aren't all peeled up and messed up, they'll say, yeah, that was an improvement. I think they use good materials. Materials are better now than they were when the original tile was laid 50 years ago. Okay, so anyhow, those tiles are square units. Okay, it took about 28 tiles that way and about 20 tiles this way or something like that. How many tiles is that? We multiply 28 by 20, right? Get 560. Okay. They had 560 tiles on the floor. So it's 560 square units, where the square unit is the tile, the area of the tile. And the tiles are 1 foot by 1 foot, so it was 560 square feet. Now, if these sides here, well, this side would be 2, and this side would be 2, and this side would be 4, and this side 4, 3. This side would be 3, and this side would be 3, right? It'd be like a 2 foot by 3 foot set of 1 foot, 1 square foot tiles, if those are in feet. Okay, you call the unit of area a square unit. Square feet, square miles, square inches, whatever. So if the altitude of a rectangle is h and the base is w, what's the area? Just take it for right down in your paper. Probably not going to take time to come look at it because we've had some delays. But write it down anyway to reinforce it for yourself or to, okay? Okay, well, need to have paper available. But if you've written it down, okay. It's h times w. Altitude times base. Okay. Now, okay, let's say we got this parallelogram here. I'll put some numbers on it. Let's say this is 5 and this is 8. What's the base? Can you show me with your fingers? Yeah. We'll usually use the one that goes horizontally. So nothing's horizontal. Wouldn't matter. Okay, so the base is, well, if it's this side, show me again with your fingers. How long's the base? Okay. Well, fingers most of you have are it's 8. Okay. Well, it doesn't have to be. It could be 5, but we're going to say it's 8 because it's easier to look at. Okay. So now, can you tell me what the altitude is? That's pretty natural. You're going to say 5, and if I see a bunch of 5s, that's wrong. Not trying to, just trying to, you know, be clear now about what the altitude is. If you say the altitude is 5, then you say the area is 5 times 8, which is 40, right? Well, you would say the same thing then if we had a rectangle or parallelogram with the same base, 8, and this side being 5, but that has a lot less area than that does. Okay? And it comes down because those parallel sides are closer together. Now I'll show you why that matters. I'm going to give you an altitude. Okay? There's your altitude, h. And let's say that equals 4. Now, why is that an altitude? Well, I set it down here. Altitude is a distance between two parallel sides. Okay? Distance between these two parallel sides is less than 5. Because we can get from this side to this side if we draw a line at right angles. And that side is clearly going to be less than 5, right? Okay, because of course we could have drawn the altitude over here and it would be the third side of a triangle with a right angle down here. And 5 is the hypotenuse and it's got to be longer than this. Okay. That makes sense? So again, distance between two parallel sides, you got to be able to identify that. There's another thing I can do with this. It shows you why the area is not 5 times 8. I'm going to redraw. So we got 5 here and 8 here. Okay. Area isn't 5 times 8. Why? Because I can chop this triangle off. And I can put it over here. Then I can lightly erase these two sides so you can still see their images. Okay, well, this side is 5 just like this because the opposite sides have the same length. So this side is 5 here. This side is less than 5. Because it's the hypotenuse of a right triangle. Got to be less than 5. So area I can say h is less than 5. So the area has got to be less than 8 times 5, or 40. Okay. Now, this rectangle that we've made has exactly the same area as the parallelogram did, because all we did was we took this side, or this triangle here, got rid of it and slapped it down over here. That didn't change the area. Make sense? So that's kind of a mathematical proof, mathematical set of mathematical reasoning. Tells you the area is base times height by this triangle. The height has to be less than 5, so the area is less than 8 times 5. Okay. In fact, area is base times altitude. Now, you're going to be able to solve most of the problems in the homework if you just sit there with a bunch of formulas in front of you and decide which formula works for what. You're going to be much better off if you understand why the formulas work. That's why the formula is what it is. And that's what we mean by an altitude. Now, there are other figures that we need to look at. And there are pictures that you want to be able to break down into combinations of basic shapes, but we're just going to look at the basic shapes, okay? Another basic shape is a trapezoid. Okay. There's a formula, the area of a trapezoid, that I don't particularly like. So I'm not going to talk about it, but if you can sit there with formulas in front of you and you remember the formula and you can understand the area in terms of the formula, it's okay if you use the formula. But I'm going to explain the area of a trapezoid. So parallel sides. I'm going to call this side B1 because it kind of looks like a base, and call this side B2. And you got an altitude that goes between parallel sides. That's what altitudes do. Altitude is between two parallel sides. So you got altitude H. You can reconstruct this into a rectangle. What you do is cut these two sides here at their midpoints. Cut off this triangle and move it here. And then you discard this triangle. So I'll just lightly smudge it out to show you that it's gone and it's reappeared up here. That make sense? And you can do the same thing with this one. Cut them off. Paste it up here. Look what you've got. You've got a rectangle. Okay. Now, the base of this rectangle up here, because I want to draw that would be the base from here to here. So that could be from here to here or from here to here. These sides are parallel. What can you say about B? Is it bigger or smaller than B1? Smaller, bigger. bigger? Wait a minute. B is smaller than B1. I forget which way I asked the question. B1's bigger than B, right? Because we chopped these two pieces off, right? So B1 is bigger than B, which is bigger than B2. Well, we chopped off straight lines in the middle, so this base is right in the middle between this base and this base. The number that's right in the middle of two numbers is their average. What's the average of 4 and 8? Show with your fingers. Average of 4 and 8. It's number right between it's 6. How can you get it if you can't just visualize it? Because you know you got 4, you got 8, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 5, 6 is half, 7, 8 is the other half. You can add the two numbers and divide by 2, right? So the rectangle has base B and altitude H. Area is B times H. But B equals B1 plus B2 over 2. I don't have room to write it. I'm going to write capital A for area, then I probably have room. It's B1 plus B2 over 2 times H. Now you have a formula that looks like that, but uses to a rectangle, and it has to have a base that's halfway between the two bases, and the altitude hasn't changed. Okay, well, there's more. Maybe I have to read some stuff, but the questions are mostly fairly elementary, and we'll see how you do. Maybe talk about it a little more next time. But also next time, we need to talk about formulas, which means you take these equations we've been solving, but you replace the letters by, or the numbers by letters. And if you got letters instead of numbers, you got to know what the operations are. So be sure that you are very clear about how to solve linear equations in the linear equations to assignment. Okay. Okay, very good.